Hey everybody, it's Romania Black, and we're on episode 12 of Death Note. Yeah, I'm recording this a little bit early. Episode 10 and 9 have come out on Patreon and YouTube, but I just couldn't wait. This series is getting really good, and this episode here marks we're a third of the way through the series. Episode 12 marks the third way through, so that's exciting. A third of the way through, 12 episodes to go, just 24 after that. Which I'm glad, because I don't want this series to go by really fast. I want to savor it and enjoy it because it's my first time watching a classic series. But at the same time, it feels like so much has happened in 12 episodes. So much. But at the same time, it feels like this is a distinct... I'll comment after the episode to see about the 3-act structure, because I have a suspicion about how this is going to set up in the 3 acts, but it depends on what all happens in this episode. So afterwards, I'm probably going to talk about... I'm going to make a note here, the 3-act structure, and just talk about it as we go, right? But yeah, so we got Misaaaaaa. I just finished watching the English dub version. The English dub is just so great, isn't it? And honestly, I'm very, very happy with the voice actress they chose for Misaaaaaa, because Misaaaaaa in the Japanese voice cast, she's very high-pitched, and I feel like there are a lot of Japanese female characters that have a very high-pitched voice, and oftentimes when it gets translated English dub, you just don't find a good equivalent to that, like something seems off. But this actress, so far in the 30 seconds we've had of her so far, her voice matches with the Japanese voice, but it sounds like her own, so I like that a lot. But man, oh man, Elle's voice actor in episode 10, mwah, glorious. Or in episode 11, absolutely glorious. I love that his voice kind of changes when he takes a bite of the cake, and he's like, well, it'd be a shame if I was killed by somebody on the Kira bandwagon. Like, his voice changed. It was different. It was crazy, but I loved it. So, yeah, episode 11 in the dub, very, very good. But I've got a couple comments before we start. Several people with episode 9 noted that in the entrance ceremony that the piece of paper that Elle is holding up and reading from is blank, and that's hilarious. I thought... that it was just an animation decision, that the animators didn't want to take the time to handwrite whatever was on the paper. Because if you listen to the Japanese dub, or if you listen to the Japanese voice cast, Light says a poem, like for the entrance ceremony, and then Elle just repeats it. So I thought that it was just they both had the same piece of paper and they were just repeating the same poem. And in the English dub, it's like a speech, but it's basically the same. But if it is in fact a blank sheet of paper that Elle is holding, one, that's hilarious. And two, if he copies Light word for word, it means he has like a photographic memory. So maybe that's foreshadowing that Elle has a photographic memory and he's able to remember everything that Light said and regurgitate it. I don't know. That could be it. But a lot of people commented about that, and so I thought it would be cool to bring it up. Natalie Valencia notes that the song that plays in episode 9 during the I'm Elle reveal actually has lyrics that says, she knows and I know she knows. Oh, I love it. I just love... someone else commented that it was taking like a long range battle and just making it up close and personal in one episode. And I thought that it was going to happen like 20 episodes from now. We're just going ahead and getting it over with. Red Admiral talked about how Elle wearing the same clothing over and over again, likened to what he described, or what they described, as a phenomenon that, quote, that some with autism have that's called same clothes. And I thought that was really interesting. I'm glad that you brought that up. And I kind of wanted to add to that and say that we established back in episode 10 that Elle sits the way that he does because he's figured out it helps his deductive reasoning the most. So it would make sense, going with that same clothes logic that Red Admiral brought up, that Elle is most comfortable in those clothes and he feels he can deduce best in those clothes and in that stance. And so why change it? Why mess that up? If it works, works. So I thought that was really, really interesting. So thank you for bringing that up, Red Admiral. I really liked that. And so Advi noted that Elle's quirks also, speaking along the same lines, and questioned if Elle's quirks are really for the sake of entertainment for the story, or if it's really to relate to people. And I kind of commented that it seems like it's both. Because, yeah, on the surface level, you wonder if the author is putting those quirks out there. Advi commented it as, quote-unquote, a freak show reaction. But I don't know. I feel like on the surface, when you first see L, you're meant to be thrown off because he doesn't fit society's expectations. But the more you get to know him, you're like, oh no, he is a caring, compassionate person. He's super smart, caring, compassionate. He just doesn't give any qualms about what society expects of him. And he has the confidence to say, yeah, I'm not doing that. I'm doing whatever I'm comfortable with because it's how I'm going to do what I want to do best. And it's like, okay, interesting. And so I thought that was interesting. It was the idea of quote unquote empathy horizons widening. I like the way that you described that advice. So that was neat. And then finally, Be Happy comments, ask the question, has Light always been Kira, or did the Death Note influence him? And it's kind of one of those, which came first, the chicken or the egg kind of questions. I think it's both. I think that Light has always had Kira within him. It's just the Death Note has enabled him to reveal that, not only to the outside world, but also to himself. Right? So I like the quote that Be Happy said, where its power doesn't change people, it reveals them. So yeah, this isn't necessarily Light being altered by the Death Note, but it's revealing what's been there all along. My bigger question is, Light, if he had never found the Death Note, would have been bored out of his mind, but would have gone on to become a police detective or an officer like his father. My question is, the what if scenarios, because we've seen Chief Yagami has worked with L in the past and works with him now. So if you can imagine, if Light had never found the Death Note and became a police officer, would he have worked with L down the road? Would fate have let him meet L and work with him in a totally different capacity? Would he have still been able, would he have become a serial killer and been a detective that killed people on the side and then made it to where their bodies were never found? We don't know, right? There's so many what ifs. I almost think that the what if he hadn't found the Death Note question is more interesting to me than did the Death Note corrupt him. I think that it's always been there. It's just the Death Note's enabled it to come to light. So that's a very, very good question. And I feel like it's one we're going to be asking ourselves about Light this entire series, right? But I'm most curious to know about how Misa feels in all this, what her whole trajectory is, what she wants to do, what Light truly thinks. It's still funny to me watching the English dub. Everybody thinks that this second Kira is a man. Everyone is convinced it's a man. And I'm like, that's funny. But if you listen to the English dub version, and maybe this is just my mind already knowing that it's Misa, and maybe that's part of it, is that my mind already knows it's a woman, so it's kind of playing tricks on itself. But when you listen to the dub voice with the voice changer, it doesn't sound like Light. The cadence, the way that they talk, even though the voice is distorted, the manner in which they talk does not match Light. So it's a little more noticeable, I think, in the dub than it is in the sub, although it could be, I'm just thinking that because I already knew the reveal was coming, so that might have affected the way that I thought about it, but we'll see. In any case, I'm pretty excited to dive into this episode and see what goes down. So, we're not going to waste any more time. That was a nice under 10-minute intro, but we are going to dive into episode 12 of Death Note. We're at the 1/3 mark and just see what happens. So we're going to do that here in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and let's go. Oh my god. Oh my god. This show gets better and better as it goes. We're okay. I was gonna wait until the end of this episode to talk about the 3-act structure, right? Because I teach English, so I was like, the 3-act structure is usually a big thing with any story. And so at this point in time, now that this episode is finished, we have finished a third of the story, or you could say we finished Act 1. Even though it's not a clean break, you could probably argue that it's not the best end of a specific act, but I think that with what we know now, we have enough to end Act 1 that has introduced pretty much all of our main big concepts. So usually in a 3-act structure, you have Act 1. And what happens first of all is that you introduce your main characters, right? That includes your protagonist, includes your antagonist, which in this series, it's all over the board. Depends on what perspective you're looking at it through, right? It introduces your main characters. So we have, obviously, we have Elle, we have Light, and we have Misaaaaaa. And then obviously we have now Rim and Ryuk, who are the Shinigami. But we have our three main characters here, and whoever you consider the protagonist and antagonist, I guess, depends on your perspective there. And we have the officers, we have Light's family, we have Watari, and that's pretty much our main cast. So you have introduce your main characters. And then usually you introduce, some people call it the MacGuffin, or it's an item. It's like in a fantasy story, it's a magical item that has a property that's kind of essential to the plot, but it's not like the plot can go without it, but it's pretty essential, right? And that's the Death Note. The Death Note is the driver of conflict. It is the creator of conflict. It's the whole reason the story is taking place. It's our magical MacGuffin, is the Death Note. And so we did that. We introduce our conflict itself, and that is that Light wants to become the god of a new world using the Death Note, and he's being opposed by Elle and the police task force, which includes his father. And now there is another crack in the cog in the wheel, and that is Misaaaaaa, who has inherited a Death Note as well, from a Shinigami that fell in love with her. Oh my god, I wanted to talk about this since episode 1, but now it's, because my theory was, with Ryuk way back in episode 1, I thought, okay, maybe Ryuk became a Shinigami protecting someone he loved, or killing someone because they killed the person that he loved. But this is kind of like a twisted version of that no, Gelos died because, which is funny because his name kind of sounds like jealous, died because someone was going to try to kill the person he loved, and so he changed the Death Note. He changed it to where she wouldn't die, and that's a big no-no. So we're going to talk about that. You can't do that, apparently. But yes, we've introduced our conflict, and then we've also introduced our characters' main motivations and base personality. Like, we got all we need to know about Light, Elle, and Misaaaaaa so far from these episodes. Like, we haven't had a lot of time with Misaaaaaa, but her character, you can kind of see a bit of it in this episode. And so we've introduced like Light's personality, Elle's personality, Misaaaa's personality, and kind of their main motivations. Misaaaa's whole thing is she wants to meet Light because she finds him fascinating, and he seems to have a worldview that is similar to her own, right? We have Elle, who wants to catch Kira, which is essentially Light, for his sense of justice. And then we have Light, who wants to become the god of the new world because of his sense of justice. So we have all this introduced, and that's always Act 1. Act 1 usually does that. And usually Act 2, which if we follow the same formula, is going to be episodes 13 through, if we do 12 more episodes, it's going to be 24. 13 through 24 is going to be Act 2. And in that, the action kicks in, which is funny to say because the action's been kicking in this entire season. I don't think it's stopped. But the action kicks in, the characters are intertwined. Usually there is a twist or peripety, denouement, your twist in the story. At this point, we've had so many twists in the story, I can't imagine what that's going to be. I just can't. I'm ready for my mind to explode. And so there's usually going to be twists and turns. And then usually, if it's depending on the type of story that it is, usually by the end of Act 2, your characters are at a low or dire point. So things are going to be low or dire. Like things are going to, something drastic is going to happen that's going to spurn the characters to act in a certain way to build towards the climax in Act 3. And so Act 3 would then be episodes 25 through 36. Yes, right? Yeah, 25 through 36. And that would be, at that point, it builds to the climax. Okay? Builds to climax. Your climax happens, and then you have your resolution, which is the ending of the story. And usually, in any story, your Act 3 is the hardest to pull off because you've built up all of your action to this crescendoing point, and then something has to happen, and it has to resolve somehow. Or it doesn't resolve. Some authors are like, nope. Some authors go the route of, you know what, I don't want to resolve it, so we're not going to. and then you just chuck your book across the room. So yeah, that's, so far, Act 1 of Death Note has met all of the criteria. It's met all the criteria that it's supposed to. Now the question is, if we go into Act 2, who's going to be at their low point? Is it going to be L's low point? Is it going to be Light's low point? Is it going to be Misa's low point? All of the above, we don't know, but that's interesting, right? So I'm going to go ahead and erase this because we're going to need the whole board for this episode, I feel. But I just wanted to point out, with a 3-act structure, Death Note's riding along the train really nicely, and I appreciate that about it. I really do. Man, I don't know what I expected out of Misa in this series so far, but she has exceeded my expectations of being absolutely wonderful. Like, I don't know. It's one of those things where she's so, not innocent isn't the right word, but I'm getting more where she's coming from, and her perspective and her personality is so unique, and her taste. I love that she's goth. I love she's a model. I love that, like, and she has this obsession with death and Shinigami, which makes sense. It's so weird now because she wouldn't have known. It's almost like fate, right? Fate is connecting. And I want to make note in the OP that she has the choker with the chain on it, and Light has the chain around his wrist. It's almost like they're tied together. Interesting. So interesting. But she has this like death motif with her when she doesn't even maybe realize it. So that makes you question, like, is it fate? Was it tying them together? Is the death motif why he kind of like fell in love with her? Or what's the deal? What is the deal? God, there's so much to talk about with Mikasa, or not Mikasa, with Misa, with Light, with L's world just getting shattered, and him being like, what? Again, in the OP, Light's eyes are red, which looks like the Shinigami eyes, but we could also argue that in episodes like 1 and 2, his eyes had that red hue as well. So we can't exactly go off of that as being symbolic of anything for sure. But I don't know. I don't know if he's going to end up taking... He may end up taking the Shinigami eyes to get rid of her. I don't know. But she doesn't seem like the person that's smart enough to hide her name. But she is chaos. And she's just the type of chaos that does not care about Light's planning. Doesn't care about the intricacies that Light and Elle are doing in this cat and mouse. She's like, cat and mouse, just here's a mouse trap and some rat poison. I don't care. That's kind of like, that seems like her approach. Like, she's just like, I'm going to do what I want. I don't care what you guys are doing. That's dangerous. And I think Light figured out in this episode, oh, you are very dangerous and we need to get rid of you very quickly. So I think the only thing saving Elle at this point is that Light is like, holy shit, Misa needs to die or we're going to have some problems. But she's got the Shinigami eyes, so how's that working? Okay. Love. This episode being called Love. At first I was like, why? And when we saw the title of it, I was thinking, is the episode called Love because she's in love with Kira and that's the reason why? Not necessarily. So it's funny in all of this. It's hilarious to me that Light and Elle are using each other in the same ways. They both want the same thing. So we have Light over here. I'm going to use red for Light. And I'm going to use poor Elle, Ryuzaki, a.k.a. Elle. We're going to put him here. And then I'm going to use black for Misa. Keep wanting us to call her Mikasa. For Misa, we're going to use that over there. So our trio here, it's like the craziest. Most anime have a trio where it's 2 guys and a girl. This is like the most sexless trio ever. Because there's no way. The only way I could see Elle and Misa getting along remotely is because they both seem to like sweets. Misa really likes sweets, and Elle likes sweets. So maybe that's the one way they connect, is that they both like sweet things. Like he gives her like a cup of coffee and lots of creamer and some strawberry sundaes. He's like, hey, let's chat. And she's like, oh my God, sure. So I'm going to say that with both of them, both like sweets. They're both Light's enemy. Both of them are Light's enemy because they both like sweets. There we go. So yeah, but Light and Elle are using each other in the same manner. And so they tell Light that he needs to come to the police station to help out. And Ryuk, meanwhile, is eating all the apples and be like, hey, what's up? And of course, I like that since the last episode, Light has been dressing a lot in black clothing. It's like portraying the blackness of his soul. And so Light is very cautious in this moment. He's like, I was trying to get in, But L just asks me to come. He's like, sounds like a trap, right? And meanwhile, Ryuk's just sitting there like, what you thinking about, Light? You know, he's just on the couch being ridiculous. But so we find out that old Ryuk stole a death note from the Shinigami King, which is not, according to Rim, an easy task. So Ryuk is maybe more dangerous than he seems. So we're gonna put Ryuk and Rim. I like Rim's name because it kind of reminds me of like REM, like not the band, but the sleep pattern where you fall asleep and having like lucid dreams and stuff. So they established that there is a Shinigami King. Okay. And that apparently Ryuk stole from him. So that makes Ryuk seem like he's much stronger than he lets on, because Rem seems to tell Misa that that is not something you just waltz up and do. That takes some skill. And Ryuk is a Shinigami with a certain set of skills, apparently. So Light's like, well, this seems too good to be true, because if I'm invited to the police station, yeah, I can investigate and see what they know about the fake Kira. He's like, but I need to find, and he says he needs to find out before anybody else at the headquarters does. So Light's going to try to like get ahead of the game to figure out, because Light's figured out that this second Kira's got to go. So Light is going to investigate with L to find Misa. Because he's like, that does not need to get out to the public, because if they find out about the death note, that could be very bad for my thing. And I love that, okay, for the record, I'm just going to take a screenshot of this. I'm putting it in the Discord as I speak, but it is a picture of Light and L shaking hands. Looks like a heart. I'm going to put a picture up here so y'all see it. Looks like a heart. This whole scene of them deciding to work together, it's a running joke, and I'm going to apologize to you all right now, but I will take every opportunity to make everything I watch into a BL, so you'll have to excuse me. I am basically Ogasawara's girlfriend from Sasaki to Miyano. But this handshake between them, he's like, Ryuga, we both want to catch Kira. Yeah, they do. That's the funny thing. The hilarious thing is he's not lying. They both want to catch Kira. It's just Light wants to catch the second one, and L wants to catch both of them. So that's really funny. And he's like, please call. And I love that even he's like, call me Ryuzaki here. Like, he's very specific. L's like, I don't care who you are. We have rules. Follow them. Right? I love it. And Light's, I love Light's like Light's face is like, oh. I freaking love it. I love that Light's like, oh God. Like, that animation was wonderful. And he says, I'm Matsui, I'm Aihara, and I'm Asahi. And Light's like, okay, I'll play along. He's like, would it be all right if I'm Light Asahi? And I love that L's like, you're not funny. He's like, no, I'm just gonna call you. I love that he's like, please do. I will call you Light here. He's like, I'm not totally playing your game. I just love the looks. The look that Light gives L is so condescending. It's wonderful. But yeah, so anyway, he says that now on to business. So they give him the tape, and they're trying to figure out with the tape whether or not they should tell him the actual investigation. And this is genius on L's part. Because, and I love that he gives him the note. He's like, don't take anything out of the room. Has to stay here. And then Chief Yagami has aged like 10 years in the past week. Like, his hair, it's just totally white and gray. I feel so bad for him. He's got like a little sprig sticking out. Our dude, I feel so bad. He's like, he just wants his son to be safe because he believes in him. So they deduce that basically they want to check with Light to see if he suspects there's a second Kira as well. And they're going to use that to determine whether Light is quote unquote innocent for now. Now, I think L still suspects Light an awful lot. He says 5%, but I think it's much more. But he wants to put Chief Yagami a little bit at ease. And he wants to test, he also wants to test Light's reasoning skills. And he's like, I'm going to kind of use Light in this moment to determine some things, but I'm also going to use it to determine whether or not we can trust him more than just on the surface level, right? So Light is suggesting, or L is suggesting, that Light, if he were Kira, he would want L dead. But L also kind of admits that at the same time, he's like, well, but the real Kira probably wouldn't want this fake one running around because they're tarnishing their name and they could give themselves away. So Elle's like, we're going to use the info from the second Kira in order to find out more about the original. And so basically it's pretty genius because it's either going to work in their favor either way. Either Light says he doesn't know anything and is suspicious, and then Elle can be like, aha, you're Kira, and go from there. Or if he does go along with them and say what they want to hear, then the suspicion isn't totally erased, but it means that Elle can use Light to help draw out the fake Kira, and it's going to help both of them. It's going to help the real Kira and Elle at the same time. So it's like killing two birds with one stone. So it's genius. I'm like, Elle, my dude, mwah. It's wonderful. I love it. And so they're trying to deduce whether or not both Kiras need a name and a face to kill, or if it's just the second one, if there's a difference between them. It's genius. I love it. And so he says he's almost completely cleared if he, because if he were the real Kira and if he didn't care about the second Kira at all, then he'd want Elle dead and he just would want to leave the case alone. And Elle's like, I'd like to live, thank you. And so then, of course, Chief Yagami is like, so if Light says that there's a second Kira, that means he's cleared of all charges, right? You'll leave him alone, right? And Elle's like, nah, I still got that 5%. And poor Chief Yagami, his face, he's like, I just want my son to be left out of this. It's so sad. Like, I feel for Chief Yagami. I do. If there's anybody I sympathize the most with in this show, it's probably him, because he just wants his family safe. And it's so sad. So yeah, they're going to end up having Light help them with the case. So yeah, so Light's not stupid though. And so he's watching the tapes. This scene is so great because you can just tell that Light is offended. He's so offended. He says, could it be that the reason why I feel so disgusted when I watch this is because I'm the real Kira? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, Misa, you think that Light is going to want to meet you and talk to you, but he is disgusted with you. Light does not like you. I like that Light is disgusted by Misa. He can't stand this second Kira. And like I said in the last reaction, I'm sure that Light is watching this going, this stuff is so mediocre. What is this? I wouldn't do that, You can just tell under the surface, like, how his gaze is so serious. I want to take a picture of that, too. Like, his gaze is so serious. Ooh. This is more than just tarnishing Kira's reputation. So why isn't anyone giving an explanation? So yeah, even at this point, Light is debating, like, this goes beyond just her tarnishing my reputation. It's more than that. And so Light's like, I gotta be careful what I say. And Light comes to the realization, he's like, I'm screwed. I can't. He's like, if I leave the situation alone, Elle will die. But I can't leave it alone. Elle's forced me into a corner. And I love that Elle walks up and he's like, Light, what do you think? Did you get some information from it? Like, I love how Elle just like scuttles over there and he's like, hey. There are times in this where Elle looks so innocent. He looks so childlike. He's just like, hey, did you find something out, friend? Oh, buddy, oh, pal. And Light just looks so pissed off and annoyed at him. Those of you that are on Twitter or the Discord, prepare to be bombarded with images from this episode because it's going to happen. Oh my God, this is just so great. I can't get over it. And he's like, And then, Elle's like, Did you figure something out, Light? All the pictures, all the screenshots. And I just love it. I love that Light is like, damn him, I'm caught. Like, he's so good, right? And I love that he just grips the couch. And he's like, there may be more than one person who has Kira's power. And I love that Elle's like, oh, we're going to play that game. And Chief Yagami's like, Light, what do you mean? And Light's like, there's a good chance that this is not the Kira we've known up until now. Yeah. He basically says everything we've up until now, this Kira's a lot worse than me. And Light has to go along with it. He has to say what he knows. Isn't strange he was able to kill detectives and officers who happened to go near the television studios. Yep, and they're all like, okay, this is the same deduction as L. I mean Ryuzaki. And then, oh, Chief Yagami, he's like, you did well, Light. Like, oh, honey, you don't even know. You don't even know that your son is a killer, and he's just doing this because he wants to get rid of the second Kira first before L. I was like, oh, Chief Yagami, you don't even know. It's all setting it up in my mind. Chief Yagami is going to figure out that Light is Kira before he dies. I am 80% sure that Chief Yagami is going to die in this series, and it's going to be freaking heartbreaking, and I'm going to hate it, and I'm going to, like, scream, but I'm pretty sure he's going to die, and I'm pretty sure that he's going to find out that, like, he's either going to find out that Light was Kira before he dies, or he's going to die without knowing. The only thing I can hope for is that he dies without knowing, because if he finds out that Light was Kira this whole time, oh my god, I can't. No spoilers, though. Let me be. Let me wallow in my despair. If that happens, he says, you should be cleared now. And Elle's like, okay, we can work with this. We're looking for a second Kira. We're all on the same page now. And, of course, Light's like, I thought so. You tricked me, you bastard. And he's like, so you knew Ryuzaki. And he's like, oh, you tested me? Like, I like his body language. He's like, And Elle's like, I didn't test you. He's like, I'm not convincing if I'm the only one who argues. Like, L has a reason. He, like, has a backup answer as soon as Light starts talking. Like, the banter between these two, it's like, it's 4D chess, and I love it. It's great. They're acting on so many levels. He's like, you've been of great assistance to me, Light. Thank you so much. It's just like him just, like, rubbing the salt in the wound. It's great. I love it. He's like, so it's decided. We have the first stop. We have to first stop the second Kira. I love that they're like, he obviously sympathizes with Kira and is not very bright. I mean, one, they still think it's a guy, but two, yeah, Misa's no genius. She seems much more pathos driven than logos driven. That's for sure. I think he'll obey the real Kira. Yeah, so we'll make a fake message from the real Kira, and there's a good chance we can stop him. I love that it's all sparkly. I love it's all sparkly and very... It's like, it's so sparkly and well written, but they still think it's a guy that they're writing it to. I'm like, why? Okay, sure thing. And Light's like, wow, that seems like a great idea. Of course you'd think of something like that. He's like, I thought that'd be a great idea too. They're like on the same wavelength. So the plan is to send Misa a message, right, to try to like talk her out of killing Elle and them. Okay. And he says, Light, I'd like you to play the part of the real Kira. Oh my god! It's so... What a role of a lifetime. The role you were born to play, Light. Oh my god. It's so good because it's like, what better way to understand the murderer than to get in his brain? It's like, and Light is going to have to pretend to be who he's pretending to be, but may also really be, but not do it so much that he's convincing to Elle, but do it just enough to where he's convincing to Misa. It's like, It's glorious. I love it. He's like, me? And he's like, yes, with your abilities, you should be able to do it. And it's also Elle being like, I wonder if you are Kira, what will you do in this situation? We don't have any time to waste. Can you script a message from Kira to air on tonight's news? And I love that Ryuk's just like, ah! Ryuk's like, look at you! I love that Ryuk is our chaotic neutral member of this. It's freaking great. I love it. And Light's just like, you're joking. Damn him. He planned from the beginning to bring me here to play this role. Yes, he did! Elle has been playing Light from the start. So he is having Light play Kira. Because, yeah, he's going to learn so much from Light's response and everything. Because trying to see if there's any patterns, anything that he can discern from that would tie back to anything with Kira from the past that he can use to connect the dots. Like, Elle, you are no slouch, my friend. I love it. It's so great. And so then we have... I love that... Okay, we have this wonderful hotel room with just Light and Elle by themselves together talking about Kira. Just two guys talking it out together. I know there's nothing romantic about this, and I think that Light is like one of the most asexual anime characters I've seen in a while. But I could see where people, if you were gonna make lines to ship, I see you. I think Light is personally asexual as they come in this, but I can definitely see if you shipped him and L. I'm seeing it. I also love that L still holds the paper with it wasn't just the opening ceremony. It's the same way. He holds it the same way, like he's trying not to dirty it. It's great, which, you know, maybe he doesn't wash his hands so much. Maybe that is the case. Although he does seem like somebody that would wash their hands though. And so he's like, I think this letter is very good, but if we don't remove the part which says you're free to kill L, then I'll die. He's like, can we remove the part where I'm supposed to die? Let's not make this too much like Kira. It's so great. And then I love that Light's like, gotcha. At that point, I was like, oh my god, these are enemies to lovers. Well, when pretending to be Kira, I thought that he would demand that Elle would be killed. And the look on Light's face is he's like, well, I thought that's what Kira would want, you know? It's like, Light's like, okay, play your games. You're trying to out me as him. Fine, I'll play along, but I'm going to add this line about killing you. So now what? It's like they're just at each other's throats, and it's glorious. It's so damn funny. And Ryuk's like, am I witnessing like a love story blossom between these two? And then this line where he's just sitting in the back with his legs crossed in the chair, like it's just a bit of a joke. Like these two, it's the weirdest thing. Like the chemistry between them is so amazing. For them being enemies and rivals, it's just like they have instant chemistry. Like they were born, they're like destined soulmates, but they're like enemy soulmates. It's the greatest thing. I freaking love it. And with Light with the black shirt on and Ryuk with the white shirt, it's poetry in motion. Mm-hmm. He says you can change it to whatever you like. And Elle's like, yes, I think I will. Mr. Ihara, the script is ready and I'll leave it to you. Okay. And so this is the crazy thing. So basically the world knows that there are two Kiras. The world knows that there's supposedly a fake Kira and a real Kira. So that's shaking things up. That's going to make it to where that's where the public's going to be like, well, which one is the real one? Who do we trust, right? And so the news anchor says in response to the video that was aired on Sakura TV a few days ago, another person claiming to be the real Kira has appeared. And has ordered several TV stations to air his message. So we scan across town. We scan across to find where Misa's apartment is. Is this the real Kira? Is this another Kira? And we find an apartment. Okay. So she lives in an apartment complex, for all we know. Somewhere with a balcony. And it's the weirdest thing. It's very odd. It's like, I am Kira. But it's so sparkly. For a group of guys that are convinced that the second Kira is a man, I don't know. It's just the response is very, I guess it's supposed to look angelic. It's just, it doesn't look anything like the calling card. So it's, well, but I guess the calling card was based off of L, so that's true. Interesting. And then she's like, I did it, Kira responded. Oh, honey, our yandere girl. I love the design of Misa, her room, her character design, everything is amazing. It's so gothic and wonderful. I love it. But Misa, she's goth. I love that she has like the thigh-high socks, the CD-PD shirt. Her bedroom tile is black and white tile like Beetlejuice. Her like, it says, I'm the real Kira. And then she has like her TV stand has like a skull holding a heart. She has the Shinigami and roses. Oh my god, it's great. And then she has up like things on top of like an angel or something on top of her TV stand. So then she has like this thing in a coffin. She has the dolls with like the eye patch and the leather bracelets and everything and the choker. And then she has like the doll that's like sewed up that has a sailor outfit. I will show leniency to the imposter because I'm assuming he did it out of an attempt to help me. And she has all these books and magazines stacked up. Mm-hmm. And then she has the Shinigami statue. Wow. So I think it's so cool that the motif that she has and this seemingly obsession with like some more macabre things. I feel like it's interesting because it ties to Gillis and his like fascination with her. Like she was fascinated with death just like he was fascinated with her. So we'll go ahead and put this on here. We'll go ahead and put Gillis on here, and that he was in love with her. I mean, Rim thinks that it's love. I guess you could say it was love. It was just not a fascination because he chose to break like the ultimate taboo of the Shinigami to save her. I guess that is love, right? We'll talk about that when we get to it. And so Kira says in the video that killing innocents is against their beliefs. I love that we have like the candle and the half egg and the bird cage with the vines all over it, and then there's like the cross. Oh, it's great. It's wonderful. Like the imagery here is fantastic. I ask that he refrain from killing aimlessly and accept my basic principles. And then it's just all the religious in it. It's great. If you ignore this warning, and she ignores the rest of the video. She doesn't even care. She just ignores it. She's like, the video. And Rim's like, and continue to be reckless. I'm going to reply to him, of course. Wow, she ignored the video. She ignored the rest of it. She was like, who cares? He replied. I want to reply back. Oh my God. She is yandere. She is in love with Kira. And so, several days later, they get a reply. And they're like, oh, what? And so I'll bring the entire envelope there, but here's a copy. And I love that everybody's, so everybody's like in the same clothes again. Funny that. Light, you're picking up on Elle's habits. This scene, oh my God, this is amazing. So we have Kira again. Mr. Kira, thank you for your reply. Again, and this Kira thinks that it's a man too. I'll do as you say. And they're like, wow, we did it. That was easy. That was fascinating. And then I love that Light's like, I'll do as you say. Well, I can't use that. Light basically realizes, he's like, I'm not here for a yes man. So Light is not amused that Misaaaaaa is so compliant. Yeah, because I think Light was holding out hope that that the second Kira would be somebody that could rival Elle and Light in terms of their intelligence and strategizing abilities. But no, Misaaaaaa is very much emotion driven. She is very much like, this is the action I'm going to take. She doesn't really think things out, and she does not care. She's like, I'm just going to say whatever I want and y'all can't stop me. Because Misaaaaaa is not out to be a god. No, she just wants to meet Kira. She just wants to help. But she doesn't want to become the god herself. That's not in her agenda. And so, or at least that we know of, she just wants to meet Kira and help them and show their appreciation, right? And we'll talk about the killer, the stalker. We'll talk about them too, because there's a parallel there that's kind of freaky when we get to it. We'll talk about that. But she's not playing a game. She's not playing a cat and mouse. She's just like being very spontaneous about this. And Light's like, that's going to ruin my plans. So we can't have that. He's like, oh crap, I can't use this person. If they get to the police, they're probably going to blab. As we find out in a minute, he's like, oh, this is not good at all. So Light's like, this does not bode well, right? And so then they're listening. It says, if he knows Kira's feelings, he would force Elle to appear on TV and kill him. Yeah, so Light's like, well, if this was really an appropriate fanboy, then they would know that I want Elle dead. I just love how Light is like, forget killing criminals. I want Elle dead. Like, it's like, Light, do you hear yourself? It's so crazy that Light at this point, Misaaaaaa is still focused on, Misaaaaaa is focused on meeting Kira to help him save, I'm going to put that in quotation marks, save the world. So Misaaaa's just doing this out of the kindness of her heart. And she's like, I just want to meet Kira, and he's trying to kill all the bad guys and make the world a better place. Well, that sounds great. I just want to help him. And meanwhile, Light's over here like, I'm trying to kill Elle because he's trying to find out who I am. Stop making this difficult. Oh my God. But then it gets bonkers from there. It just goes off the rails. Don't fall. He says, don't fall for something like this, damn it. He's like, why aren't you smarter than this? And Misa's like, I'm not trying to be a god, and I don't care about the police. Which in her mind too, she's probably thinking, what threat are they to me? I just have to look at them and I'll know their name and I'll write their names in the death note and they're dead. To Misa, she's like, what have I got to lose? We don't know how much life she has left, and we'll talk about that too towards the end of the episode. But she's like, what have I got to lose? I can defend myself. You're the one that's got the problem. You know, it's funny how their concerns are totally different. And she says, I want to meet you. I don't think you have the eyes. Oh, I got chills. I got literal chills when she said that. I don't think you have the eyes. And Light's like, shit, no! So he knows she has the eyes, okay? So it's basically been confirmed that Light knows she has the eyes. This whole reveal scene is maddening. It is insanity that he's like, oh my God. And she's like, I won't try to kill you. Please don't worry. And he like looks over real quick like, did anybody see my response? Did anybody see me have a mini freak out? Okay, no, we're good. And Elle ain't watching Light. And Light's like, is he stupid? And it's like, well, Misa doesn't care. She gives no shits are given by Misa on this day. He talked about the Shinigami eyes on a tape the whole world will see. Because that's the thing. Now that the tape is aired, the world's going to know about the eyes and wonder what the eyes are. Like, it's going to be the sensation. It's going to be like the lore, the religion of Kira. The lore is expanding, right? It's expanding. Mm-hmm. Oh, my God. And so Light's like, why are you talking about this? And we still don't know where the headdress Shinigami is. I thought when Rim started talking about the Shinigami that died, that she was talking about the one with the headdress. That one's still on the loose and has a death note. What we gonna do? I don't know. Oh my God. But then, so we see Light's eyes, and then we cut to Elle. He just said he didn't have the eyes, did he? What could that mean? Who knows? Elle's face! Elle's like, what? Elle's like, what are these eyes? Like, you know, Elle's mind is like swimming with possibilities. Like his brow and his eyes, he's like, shouldn't, like, the eyes, like, is he thinking, is it like how you look at somebody? You know, like, his brain is trying to process it all. And then it just gets completely shut out. He's like, please think of a way we can meet without the police knowing. Oh my God. When we meet, we can confirm each other by showing our Shinigami. And at this point, Light is like, shit, and Ryuk's like, oh no! Like, Ryuk says nothing, but he's in the background going, oh! And everybody's like, what Shinigami? And Light is like, this person is no good. No, not at all. I have to do something fast about this guy or else. And then Elle has a panic attack. Elle cannot process that this could be something from beyond reality. This could be something beyond the laws of reason. Elle freaks out. Because, yeah, the concept of a Shinigami, it defies the laws of reason. It defies that. It's so interesting, right? It's so interesting. And we'll compare this in a second, but oh my God, this theme where he's like, what? And he just like tenses up and like just freezes like he's gonna die of shock and just falls right over, just like smashes in the ground. And Light's like, what the hell's wrong with you? And they're all like, oh my God. And then he's like, Shinigami. Like, Elle is terrified. He's like, are we supposed to accept the existence of something like that? Because, yeah, that's so fascinating, because we've talked about how Elle and Light are similar, but there's a major difference in them, and that was Light. Light instantly accepted Ryuk. Okay? When Ryuk popped up in episode 2, when Ryuk popped up like in episode 2 or 1, or, yeah, no, it was the end of episode 1, wasn't it? Yeah, when he just popped up, Light was like, oh, hey, I've been waiting to see ya, and Ryuk's like, honestly, the actual response of if a death god showed up in front of you is L's response. L's like, holy shit, no, Shinigami? What? Those can't be real. That's not real. It's fairy tales. That's not logically possible. I'm getting the idea that maybe L's a little agnostic. And or atheist, and just like, no, there's no way that exists. Like, he's so freaked out. Whereas Light just instantly accepted that it was a thing. He's like, oh yeah, it's fine. So there's such a major difference between the two, is that Light instantly was just like, oh yeah, Ryuk, you're here, cool, Death Note, here, great, we're fine. But L, it's like, it's just turning his world upside down. It's hilarious because L defies a lot of social conventions of society in his mannerisms, in the way that he speaks and conducts business socially with others, but his concept of justice is very much in line with the concrete rules of society. L is like, no, this is the way things are. He's like, this is the way things are. This is how they're meant to be. We operate within this structure, and that's just the way things are. There's no outside rule of the divine or stuff. There's a logical explanation, right? Even though the stuff that's been happening with Kira is very fantastical and just seems otherworldly, he's like, no, there has to be a reason. There has to be an explanation. We can figure this out. The concept of a Shinigami even being present is, to L, insanity, right? Right? But to Light's view of justice is, I don't want to say it's more abstract, but it's very much tied not within the constructs of society. Light's against the constructs of society. Light's whole thing is that the constructs of society are making things worse. He's like, no, we need divine judgment and punishment. So Light accepting Ryuk instantly kind of falls in line with how his sense of justice is defined, and L's freak out is in line with his sense of justice and how it's defined. So that's fascinating. But poor L, if L ever sees Ryuk, he's gonna flip. He'll probably faint. I don't ever want L to see Ryuk, because that means that he's either touched the Death Note or been given it. And I said in the last episode, I was like, oh, L needs to find himself a Shinigami in a Death Note. At this point, I don't know if L could handle it. I think it'd be too much. I don't know, but he has a freak out. Poor L. Oh my god. So we get some Death Note things, but I was so freaked out with L that I didn't even read this. But it says, you may also write the cause and or deaths of death prior to filling in the name of the individual. Be sure to insert the name in front of the written cause of death. You have 19 days, according to the human calendar, in order to fill in a name. Huh. So, okay, there is a time limit to it. Okay, I wondered a few episodes ago, like, if you had a cause of death, if you had a time constraint, 19 days is the most abstract number. Like, why isn't it a month? Why isn't it a week? Why isn't it 3 days, 7 days? 19 is so bizarre. I guess maybe in Shinigami time it makes more sense, but it rounds out to 19 days on the human calendar. Interesting. But yeah, so you have 19 days to fill it in. Good to know. And then the other rule that's on here says, even if you do not actually possess the Death Note, the effect will be the same if you can recognize the person and his or her name in the... Oh, so even if you do not actually possess the Death Note, the effect will be the same if you can recognize the person and his or her name to place in the blank. Oh! So... Oh, shit. So if you had that blank open and you said, will die by a car accident, and you didn't have their name wrote down, but you found that person and you can will it into the Death Note? What? What? That's weird. That's bizarre. That's scary if you can just will somebody's name into it. I don't like that. That's weird. Yeah, I don't like it. Interesting. But yeah, poor L. Yeah, are we supposed to accept the existence of something like that? And then the tape's over. So, yeah. And he's like, impossible. There's no such thing. And then Light's like, shit. He's like, that's right, Ryuzaki. Shinigami don't exist. And Ryuk's like, back here. Ryuk's like, I'm just going to keep not existing back here. Thank you very much. Yeah, the apples I eat didn't exist either. You know? And then poor L. And then, yeah, L looks behind him and there's no Ryuk. And so he says Kira had those criminals in prison write something about Shinigami. Yeah, Shinigami love apples. And then, so Chief Yagami takes it to the level of, oh, should we assume then this is the same Kira? Because only the real Kira would know about Shinigami. And how does the fake know? And Light's like, no, that's not it. If this is the same Kira from before, he wouldn't have replied to our video. I like how Light, you're so close to giving yourself away. But again, Light's ego. If you just left it alone, to where they assumed it was the same Kira, I don't know if that would have worked in Light's favor or not. We can't know for sure. But his ego cannot accept a link between him and Misaaaaaa. Light is like, oh, hell no, am I being associated with this crazy person? Light's like, He's like, I'm not the same Kira as this imposter. So he says, the real Kira wouldn't have replied. There's no way the real Kira would have gone through the trouble of getting L to appear on TV only to try to stop killing him. And it's at that point because L's like still shaking. And then once Light starts talking in a manner that's a little bit suspicious, then L starts to go, okay, wait, let's get back on track here. Let's calm the frick down. He's like, yeah, because why would you go through the trouble of when you get L on TV and then stop killing him? What's the point? And I love that L, he bridges between his nose, like he's like, oh God, he's like, oh my God. He's like, if they'd already established a connection, then why would you need to do that? So maybe they use the word Shinigami to throw off the investigation. And L says that's not possible. It's as Light says. If the two Kiras were connected, I don't think he would try to stop trying to kill me. So this second Kira is acting independent. So Light can't help but rat out the fact that Misaaaaaa is acting independent. But at the same time, Light's ego doesn't want any connection to that second Kira. So he's like, no, let's separate ourselves. We are not operating under the same management system. So then L gets back in the seat, gets back into his crouch position, his maximized deductive skill setting, and is like, okay, I'm calmed down now. Had a little bit of a freak out. It's fine. They want to meet the real Kira. And so, yeah, and then Light's like, they're acting out of interest in Kira. They are not Kira's lackey. Let's just say that first and foremost. And I love that Light thinks on the fly here. Light's like, I need a way to spin Shinigami where it doesn't sound like the actual death god. And this is really clever. I like that Shinigami refers to their killing power, because that makes perfect sense, right? If the name Shinigami means death god, it would be a clever nickname for how they kill people. They're like, oh, we're Shinigami, we're gods of death. A wink, wink, even though they kind of are. So he says that it's their killing power. Right? That's what it is. To try to give L a concrete explanation. We can confirm our identities by showing our Shinigami to each other. Means we can confirm our identities by showing each other our killing power. And L's like, okay, I can work with that. That's right. So does this mean that Kira's powers come from apples? That's the next question. The word Shinigami is a word that has some meaning between Kira and the second Kira. I like that L's toned down. He's calmed back into the realm of reason. He's like, okay, getting back on track. There's a logical explanation, right? Oh man, it's good to know that L is not a spiritual person at all. We should try to get him to tell us what it means. And so Light's like, okay, so are you going to respond and force him to be more direct? If we don't ask him properly, he'll know we're not Kira, so that won't work. And I love L's response. He's like, no, we'll leave the rest to Kira and second Kira. And Light's like, hey, what? it to them. Wait, what? What are you talking about? Elle's like, we're done here. Like, we've set the trap. We are done. He's like, we can assume the second Kira is satisfied after receiving a reply from Kira. Kind of. Misa wants to know the deets of when they're meeting up. So she's kind of satisfied, but not totally, right? And so Elle says, yeah, we've satisfied that Kira for now. She's got her attention from Kira. We don't have to do anything else. She's already complied with our problems. So also, he used a word that only the two of them understand, and Light's like, where's this going? I love the slow visual pan up to Light, and Light's like, wait, what? What? Elle, what you doing? What you doing, Elle? I love that slow pan up. Mm-hmm. The reply will air today on Sakura's TV's 6 o'clock news. Of course, Kira should be watching the exchange between our made-up Kira and the second one. Little do they know, no, it's the same Kira, but that's genius, right? Because you wouldn't assume. You would assume the real Kira is out somewhere listening. Uh-huh. So, from Kira's viewpoint, he'll want to prevent the second Kira from coming in direct contact with the police. Funny that, because that's exactly what Light doesn't want, and here we are. Mm-hmm. So, maybe this time the real Kira will respond. Oh. And Light's like, well, shit! And Ryuk's like, eh. And so they're like, what if Kira doesn't reply? And Elle's like, yeah, I thought we could do the second Kira in that case, but if he reveals more information that Kira doesn't want the police to know, then it makes Kira more nervous and furious, and in order to pressure Kira into meeting him, that would be interesting. Oh my god, I love that Elle's just having the time of his life. He's like, what have we got to lose? Yeah, because he's like, if Kira doesn't respond, if Kira does not respond to the second Kira, then won't hurt us. That Kira will probably just give us more information in exchange for trying to contact Kira. Can't hurt us any. And if they do respond, then maybe we'll try to use it as a clue to figure out what's going on. So yeah, it's great, right? Elle's like, we got nothing to lose. It's a win-win. It's a win-win for Elle and the police. And Light's like, well, my job just got more hectic. It would be more interesting if Kira gets scared and sends a reply in order to avoid that. And I love this scenario because Light is Kira, and he's sitting there the entire time listening to all these scenarios. And the problem is, now that it's out there in the open and he knows what they're thinking, he can't directly act against them because that's going to call him into suspicion. He's got to find a way to chessboard himself around the situation without being suspicious to the Elle and the police, without drawing suspicion to himself because he's there helping to investigate, while also dealing with Misa and figuring out how to get in contact with her and what to do and how to do it. So, Light, your job just got a lot. It's funny because last episode, Light was like, helps me, I'm fine. This second Kira's making my job easier. No, she's just made your job 1,000 times harder. God, it's so good. Mm-hmm. There's a chance we could obtain some physical evidence from Kira himself. In the meantime, let's focus on gathering all the information we can from the second Kira's package. God. Mwah, it's so genius. And then we find out that Misa is a model, which would explain why her hair's dyed blonde now, but it was black back when she was the girl that Jealous was looking after. So yeah, she's wearing all the different fashion clothing and all that. Makes sense why she's kind of got the funky fashion, because she's a model. I do love the shot of her with the strawberry. That's probably my favorite shot of her. Some of those outfits, but that one's really good. Mm-hmm. And then she's so cute. She like has such a cute face. She's like, oh, I'm worn out. Modeling sure uses a lot of energy. I just love Rim. Rim's just standing there like, really? Is Romy Park the VA for Rim? It sounds like Romy Park, but this is like from, like 2006. So this is like would be one of her earlier voice acting roles, right? Her voice sounds like Romy Park's. So I'm not sure. Romy Park does Hanji in Attack on Titan. So it sounded like Hanji, her voice did. And so, is it? I was like, what is this voice? I love it. It's so good. I also like her ombre hair. And she has, I am calling Rim, I'm using feminine pronouns for Rim because Rim has like a feminine voice actress voice to her, but interesting. I guess Shinigami don't really have genders. So it says, can I ask you something? Shinigami always have to have a death note. So to give one to a human to play with, the Shinigami needs to have 2 death notes. So Ryuk gave the extra death note to Kira, and so she knows about Ryuk, so she knows Ryuk's name, was able to trick the Shinigami King and get 2, right? And so Rim says, right. And she says, did you do the same? She's like, no, the Shinigami King isn't fooled that easily. So, fool me once, Ryuk gets a death note. Fool me twice, shame on you. Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on you. Blech. I'll just say I'm one of the few in the Shinigami realm who know how to kill a Shinigami. And this is great. Like this whole episode's full of amazing exchanges. It's full of great exchanges. Like the dialogue in this episode is fantastic. I love it. And she's like, then you killed a Shinigami and gave his notebook to me. And Rim's like, no, I didn't kill him. He died on his own accord. I was just happened to be around when the Shinigami died. And I love that she goes under her bed and grabs Shinigami. And she's like, tell me how to kill him. Tell me how to kill a Shinigami. And, you know, the normal response to that would be, no. And that's what I was expecting. I was expecting Rim to be like, why would I tell you that? But instead, she says, don't tell anyone, okay? Well, that was a stupid thing to say because the first thing she says after you get done telling her is, I wonder what'll happen if I tell Kira that story. And Rim's like, am I a joke to you? I just love that Rim's like, I regret my decisions. So this is interesting. So Rim and now Misaaaaaa know how to kill a Shinigami. Okay. And Rim took Gelas's death note and gave to Misaaaaaa. All right. So I love this. I also like her candelabra. It's really good. And then says the way to kill a Shinigami is to get it to make them fall in love with a human. Oh, I was not expecting that because that's not something that you can do. Like, it's not something you can force, right? That's kind of the beautiful thing about it, is that to kill a god of death, you have to make them fall in love. And it's like, it's so interesting because it's like, you can't just do that, right? It's like you can't just walk up and kill a Shinigami now. You can shoot them, you can stab them, but it's love that kills them. Or it's if they fall in love with a human and try to alter their death, that's what kills them. Altering the death in the death note is really what kills them. So Rim phrases it as a Shinigami has to fall in love with a human. But what she really means is that they have to alter the death note to not kill the human. So that's interesting because if by all intents and purposes, that's interesting because what if for all intents and purposes, let's say that Light and Misaaaaaa, because they use the death note, let's say that they are technically Shinigami, right? Does that apply to them as well? Because it says once you write the names in the death note, it's absolute. It's going to happen in 40 seconds, or it's going to happen whenever you wrote it down, no matter what. So I'm predicting, like, what if at some point we get to where Misaaaaaa or Light write a name in the death note, either by accident or intentionally, and then change their mind, and then go back and rewrite over the death note? Will it kill them like it would kill the Shinigami? Would it backfire on them and kill them? I could see it happening more to Misaaaaaa than Light. I could see Misaaaaaa writing in the death note and then being like, changing her mind and scribbling it out and that killing her, and that's how she dies. Or her remaining lifespan, we'll talk about the remaining lifespan for her. But yeah, that could be, maybe. I don't know. Or I'm like, at the very end of the story, Light writes L's name in the death note, and then he decides to change his mind and scratch it out. saving Elle. I'm like, that would be a love story for the ages, a true Romeo and Juliet tragedy, but I don't think that's going to happen. And she says, I love that Misa says, what a beautiful way to kill. Like, that's a beautiful way to kill someone, is to make them fall in love. Like, she's a romantic, right? And Rim's like, I love Rim's expressions like, I guess you could look at it that way, I suppose, you weirdo. And I love her looking down at her. And she says, there once was a Shinigami named Gelis, who watched a girl from the Shinigami realm. I love the story. He was always looking at her. This is so interesting, this whole concept of looking from afar, right? And so it's interesting. He looked at her, and it should have made sense now. The black hair threw me off, but the red hat, the keychains on the phone, the purse, it should have made sense that it was her, that it was Misa from the start. But so this wasn't too long ago though, because they had a cell phone. So this wasn't like, I was wondering if the remaining lifespan that Misa got was like, if he had like 300 years left and she just inherited 150 years to her lifespan added on, and she was going to live like an obscene amount, which wouldn't matter now because she's got the Shinigami eyes, which would cut that in half to only like 75 years. So would have made sense. But I was wondering if she was like really old, but she's not. She had the like cell phone, so it's not been that long ago that he died. It's not been that long ago that he died, and Rim just saw this. So it's today, isn't it? The end of her life. The voice actor for Gelis was haunting. Like the voice actor, I almost want, I don't want to look it up because I don't want to be spoiled, but if you know the voice actor for Gelis, like tell me down below, because his voice is beautiful. Like he has the most hauntingly sad and simple voice. And he sounds like No Face. That's what I was thinking of when he was like doing the grunts at the end. He was like, and he's like dying. It sounded like No Face. So I wondered if it's the same voice actor as No Face. Maybe I'll look up the voice actor for No Face and see if they're the same. And see if it's the same one. And see if he's also played Gelis, because I would not be surprised. He sounds like No Face. But yeah, she looks so healthy. Why today? Why today? So yeah, the death god is questioning, why does she have to die? It doesn't make sense. She seems healthy. And Rim's like, I wanted to know how she was going to die too. So I decided to watch with him. And then the boots, everything, walking, that should have been a hint too, but we don't know it. The girl's walking alone at night on the street. And the guy has a knife, and he just looks like twisted and deranged. Suddenly from an alley, a man appeared and confessed his love to the girl. I love you more than anyone else in the world, and I'm always watching you, and I'll protect you forever. So here's the weird part, okay? Here's the weird part, because we have 3 ways that this is going, and it's kind of bizarre, right? So you have Gelis, who is watching Misa. He's been watching her for a long time, and he wants to protect her in the end, and so he wants to protect, even though he does not know her at all. He still wants to protect her, does not want to know her, and ends up killing to save her. Okay? So you have those 3 things. Then you have this attacker who does not know Misa, but says, I'm always watching you. I want to protect you forever. He has the same like stalkerish stuff. And instead, if he can't be with her, he decides he's going to kill her and then kill himself. So you have that scenario. It was a man she didn't know. And the girl turned him down, of course, because why wouldn't you? That's creepy. And so it's like she doesn't know him. But then he like takes the knife to go to stab her. And he's like, then I'll kill you and then kill myself. But he doesn't immediately kill her, right? He just kind of like lures her into a corner and he keeps stabbing at her, but he's not hitting her at all. It's like he doesn't really want to do it, but he's just a little deranged. And that's when Gelis decides to take the death note and change the script. Gellus did something that a Shinigami should never do. And he killed the man. And saved her. Or he didn't kill him immediately. He made him go kill himself and left the girl alone. And it shows him like walking away as she runs away. Gellus used his death note to save the girl. But that was not good. Shinigami shorten human lives. They only exist to take. So that's interesting. So Rim says, we'll get back to this in just a second, but Rim says that Shinigami only take and shorten human lives. And it's taboo to save them, and that's why he quote-unquote dies, which we'll talk about here in a moment. But what I was getting at with this whole thing here is that both Gellus and the attacker kind of have the same thing going towards Misaaaaaa, right? They both want to protect her, and neither of them know her. And then in the end, he ends up trying to kill her, and he ends up killing him to save her, right? But the funny thing is, and I would get why, it makes sense now why she told the police that as Kira, she wanted to kill these other criminals who had assaulted others or taken advantage of the weak, because she was assaulted and taken advantage of. That part makes so much sense. But the scary thing is that she's kind of doing the exact same thing with Kira. She's like, oh, I don't know him, but I want to help protect him and help him, and I should meet you and all that. Like, she has kind of the crazy same stalker stuff that these two had with her. So it's this weird cycle. It's kind of bizarre. But it's a bit uncomfortable too. So then we have Gellus like doing what he's not supposed to in the Death Note. And so by doing that, he just crumbles to dust, and he kind of like grunts and moans, but he doesn't cry or anything. He just kind of shakes around, and he like becomes this like stardust, and then he just crumbles to dust. And it says, at that moment, Gellus became something which was neither sand nor rust and died, leaving behind the Death Note. The funny thing is he's like sparkly, right? So the question is that death something negative? Because the whole concept of the Death Note up until this point is kind of greedy when it comes to the Shinigami using them. The Shinigami use the lives of humans to extend their own lives, which is pretty self-centered and greedy, right? You wouldn't imagine like this ethereal being doing something that's very human and very like sketch. But in this moment of selflessness and love, this act of love and selflessness, he saves her and knows that by doing this, he's going to die, but he does it anyway. And so he doesn't like rot or burn alive, or like, he just kind of becomes a sparkly dust and just collapses, and that's it. So it's almost like, is it negative that he died, or how are we supposed to view that? Ryuk makes the comment that the Shinigami world is rotten and boring, and that people are just sitting there waiting for their lives to expend. So is that a bad thing? It's curious. The fact that it's an act of love that kills a death god is so curious. And I'm like, Ryuk, don't be catching feelings for light now. I want you to live, Ryuk. Don't you be saving light. Don't you be catching feelings with our boy. He's a psychopath. I don't know though. I don't know. Would Ryuk at the very end of the day, would he sacrifice his own life to save light? At this point, I'd say no. He's pretty much committed himself to being a neutral party and that he doesn't care. But it'll be interesting moving forward to see not only how Ryuk acts, but also Rim, because Rim seems somewhat tied to Misaaaaaa through Gellus. So that's interesting. And left the Death Note behind. And so Rim thought that it was only proper that they return the Death Note to the girl that he saved. Gellus's remaining lifespan was transferred to the girl. So we don't know how many years were left in Gellus. Maybe it was 5, maybe it was 20, maybe it was 150. We don't know. However much it was, it's been halved because she took the Shinigami eyes. So honestly, I was thinking, I was like, girl, why'd you take the Shinigami eyes? But if she gained like 200 years of lifespan and you just halved it, she's still good to go. Like, she's still fine. But interesting. And so then Rim decided to go give the death note back to the girl whose life was spared. And Misa, she's like, does that mean that the Shinigami wouldn't have died if he hadn't fallen in love with that girl? And she says, that's right. And Misa, she's like, oh, so it was a Shinigami named Gellus who saved me that day. She remembers. Yeah. So her whole yandere thing kind of makes sense. She's like, how romantic. This man died murdering someone else to save me. Like, how romantic. Mm-hmm. And gave me the rest of his life. Gellus was in love with you. And so that notebook is yours. Which kind of is interesting. I kind of like that. I like that Rim's like, this Gellus, an actual death god, saved you because he was in love with you. So it's like you get the remains. You get like the last of his will and testament. Like, here's his property. You get it because you were the one he cared about the most. Huh. That's interesting. And of course, Misa thinks it's the most romantic thing in the world. Which it kind of is in a weird way. It is. She's like, yeah. And then she's like, so in order to kill a Shinigami, you need him to fall in love with a human and save that person. What about you, Rim? Are you in love with me? And I love the response is just, Rim's like, give it up. You can't kill me. Like, Rim's like, stop. Not gonna happen. Not gonna work. Mm-mm. Oh my God. And she's like, oh, you figured it out? Yeah. But now I have something I can tell Kira. And Rim's like, am I a joke to you? We just had this conversation about how you shouldn't give out these secrets that I just gave to you. I love Rim's just looking at her like, and she goes, I wonder if he knows how to kill a Shinigami. And Rim's like, you weren't paying attention at all. I said, I'm the only one in the realm that knows. So no, he does not know. I just love Rim's face. Misa's just babbling on about, like, I asked him on TV to tell me how I can meet you, but he still hasn't replied to me yet. And Rim's like, you did not soak in 80% of what I told you, did you? Wow. And she said, maybe I should send him another message. God. So then it's not the end of the episode. We cut to Light at that same coffee shop where nobody can see him saying, I can't leave the second Kira alone like this. If the second Kira makes a fatal slip up, then is caught by the police, then there's a chance the police will find out about the death note. Yeah, there's a big chance. Yeah. And then she's wearing the boots, the girl is, and goes to the same coffee shop. Wow. And asks for a strawberry sundae. I freaking love this. Where is Ryuk and Rim? I'm sorry. Unless we find out next episode that they're outside having a heart-to-heart with one another, unless we go outside and find them talking to one another, this is like one of the biggest plot holes of the whole series at this point, because there has not been a moment, except maybe when Light took the exam. I guess we didn't see Ryuk when Light took the entrance exam, but that's literally been the only moment that Light has not had Ryuk with him. Like, the only time we've seen him without Ryuk. I'm sorry, but if this, I don't know. It just seems like a plot hole that the two of them aren't in the room with them at that moment and seeing each other. It just seems like a plot convenience that they're not there, because the rest of this series we've not seen Light without Ryuk, except maybe when he took the exam. But who knows? I don't know. Maybe there's a reason for that. Maybe we'll find out next episode. I don't know. It just seems like a little bit of a plot hole that she's not there. And they just did it for the sake of this cliffhanger, right? Because Light's like, what should I do? How should I contact the second Kira without Elle noticing? That's going to be the hard part. Like, how do you get a hold when Elle is so tightly involved? Like, how do you do that? And meanwhile, but here's the thing. Oh, you know what? It's maybe not a plot hole, because the way that Misa looks across the table, it almost makes it look like she's looking over at Rim. So maybe, but if Ryuk and Rim were there, they'd see each other. So that can't be it. I'm like, they would know each other were there. She does get a strawberry sundae though. And she's like, I want to meet Kira soon. And he's like, but at any rate, and Light's not even worried about her. What kind of person are you, fake Kira? Oh, you know. I just love that Light looks so disgruntled and pissed, and she's like, can't wait to meet my boyfriend. He's like, I'm going to kill him. I what kind of person are you, Kira? Like, she's just so cute about it. Just like, she kind of looks like Elle when she eats the sweets. She kind of has like a sweet look to her. She's like, boop. Like, it looks very much like Elle. It's kind of bizarre. I want to get like a picture of her like eating the strawberry. Yeah, it's kind of the weirdest freaking thing. But you know what? Now I kind of want Misa. I don't want Misa and Elle to meet because I'm afraid she'll kill him. But I kind of want them to meet because I want them to have tea and cake together. Oh, this show. There's so much going on. So much going on. So now things have gotten a whole lot more complicated, as if they couldn't already. But Light's doing overtime. Good thing them exams are over, because now you got time to handle all this business. So now he's got to find a way to get in contact with Misa without letting Elle know and figure out Misa's deal. I'm curious to know what Light's reaction is going to be when he finds out it's a woman. When he finds out it's a girl. She looks like she's in her early 20s, so she's older than him. When he finds out that it's a woman, what he's going to have to do. I wonder, but here's the thing. Light, we established several episodes ago that Light kind of believes he's superior to women. He kind of views women as inferior to him. So when he finds out Misa's a woman, he'll probably be like, oh, that explains everything. And he'll probably think he can manipulate her because he thinks he knows what women want. And so that's interesting. It's going to be curious to see how Misa reacts to that and what she does. It's going to be very curious. She'll probably try to have Light like test the theory out to see if he has a Shinigami, or to ask Rim or whatever if he's got a Shinigami, and Rim will be like, oh yeah, hey Ryuk, what's up? So, that's going to be interesting. And then Elle, meanwhile, if he's calmed down, is going to be trying to figure out the stuff about the second cure and using Light for the investigation too. So that's gonna be hard for Light too, because how does he navigate working with Ryuzaki and sneaking off to contact her? How is he going to weave that all in? There's just so much that can happen, and I'm so excited. I'm like, this story is getting more and more layers to it, and we're starting the second act. So now that we've introduced the characters, we have the conflict, we know a little bit more about the Shinigami, a little bit more about the Death Note, we've set things in motion, and now I'm going to predict episodes 15 through 24 are going to be the Act 2, where we just like go all in and see like, okay, what crazy stuff can we do with this? I'm so excited, y'all. This episode was wonderful, and I'm so on board with this series. I love it. I see why it's a lot of people's favorites. I really do. So, I'm curious to know your thoughts down below. I hope you all enjoyed this reaction discussion. Please, no spoilers. Please, no hints or clues. But I'm curious to know what you guys thought of the episode down below. But yeah, I also hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe and take care. And yeah, I will be back very soon with more Death Note. Bye.